Okay, so welcome and thanks for joining the stage. And thank you, Pixelscam, for inviting me and accepting my little talk. It's my first year here, so good to be here. Yeah, let's start. I'll start with the presentations. My name is Tiago Franco. I studied multimedia design in ESAD, in Caldas da Rainha. Yeah, that's my background, arts and design. And I'm currently the co-founder, artist, animator, game, graphic, web designer, you name it, at Fun Punch. That's my Twitter handle. You could say I wear a lot of hats, because that's the usual thing that happens in small indie game development teams. You end up wearing a lot of hats. Yeah, I'll be talking about Striker's Edge today. This is what is called a post-mortem. Post-mortem, to put simply, is like a post-launch analysis of what went right and wrong with a project. And that's what we'll be doing with Striker's Edge today. Not only that, an analysis on what went right with the game, but the journey to become an indie developer as well, because I think that's an interesting side of our story as developers into getting in full-time professional game development. Yeah, so we'll go through the what, the good, the bad, and the lessons. And that last part has a lot. We got a lot to say on the lessons part. But yeah, starting with the context on what. I guess I'll play the trailer for you guys who aren't totally familiar with the game. Hopefully, if internet works.
Headshot! Headshot! Round!
That is Striker's Edge. Okay, so, whoops. Give me a second. Okay, so, how many of you have heard about Striker's Edge before? Okay, most of you, that's cool. That's good to know. So, for those, our elevator pitch for Striker's Edge is that it's a medieval dodgebrawl. Essentially, you fight at a distance with ranged weapons, usually medieval-themed weapons and warriors. And it's a PS4 and PC game. There's 1v1 and 2v2 that you can play with one of 8 characters across 4 different arenas. It has single-player campaign, Twitch integration, and much more. To go back to our roots, to give a little bit more context on what happened. This all started out with me and Flip. As I said, I studied multimedia design and became a UI, UX front-end developer. I worked with websites and apps. And Flip studied architecture and obviously became a programmer. It's only expected, right? And yeah, prior to this, we had only experienced game jams. And from Ludum Dares to global game jams to small little experiments back in the day, and not much more than that. And one day, I came up with this idea of getting a character from League of Legends in Italy. This is the original note I took at the time. I wanted to make a game much more simple than League of Legends, obviously, and kind of dilute the mechanics of Nidalee into one single game, and that was essentially the first idea. And I spoke to Flip about this idea. He kind of found it interesting to explore, and in the next Global Game Jam a few days later, we actually put that idea into Game Maker at the time and did this, which is kind of similar already with what Striker's Edge has become, but with a different orientation. And yes, after the Game Jam, me and Flip kind of wanted to further explore the idea because we saw some potential in that. So we kind of took a step back into the game and figured out what do we want to do with this. And this is obviously non-verbal. It was kind of the spirit we had at the time. There was no goals that we written to follow. So we wanted to make something in the spirit of a game jam, definitely to keep that curiosity flowing with by learning something about game development, which we enjoyed already, and combining skills, because he does code, I do art, like this power couple of game development. And we were friends, we have similar tastes and objectives and goals, so it's only fair to do it. So yeah, we never set out, one thing that is quite important to establish that, we never set out to make a fully fledged console game or PC game. We only kind of daydreamed about it. It was kind of this, we always talked about it as a joke, because we thought it would never happen really, and we cracked jokes about it. And yeah, if you told us back then this would happen, we would call you probably drunk or crazy or both. And yeah, we were doing things kind of in a goofy way, as you do in game jams. The spirit was always a game jam. We were goofing around and working on weekends or after work, after full-time work, or whenever we had a bit of time and patience, we would work a bit. And this was kind of the first decision we did, was to split the arena from top to bottom and use placeholder art as much as wooden pikes are placeholder art, mind you. Yeah, so we gave it a name, a super generic placeholder name back then, and we went to Game Dev Camp 2014. This was just a few months later after that Global Game Jam. We took it there, and for our surprise, it kind of gathered attention from other developments, because this was a game developer-centric event, and people kind of enjoyed it and already could see the potential in it, and then talked immediately about other abilities and what could we make out of that. And we thought to ourselves, well, we might actually have something here that we can pursue. So we kept hammering at it, kind of exploring more and more. And again, on weekends, after work, kind of our hobby, so to say. Yeah, we implemented a new character. This was like in the span of a year almost. And then took it to Pizza Night 2015 at Microsoft back then. This was like an event where developers would gather at Microsoft to show their work-in-progress games and to gather feedback and see what others are working on. And we ended up getting a huge jar of jelly beans as a prize, and that kind of fueled our motivations into, we might actually have something here, because this keeps proving itself as kind of a good idea. So we kind of wanted to test that in international waters, so to say. So we went to Game Lab right here in Barcelona, on our side in Spain, and not only to gather feedback, but also to get not only from other game devs, but to our idols as well. That's Rami Ismail from Volambir. He worked on Nuclear Throne and Ridiculous Fishing and a series of other great games. It's still to this day a big idol, and it took inspiration from him and his words and kept going. And coming back to Portugal, this guy called Ricardo Flores, which we didn't really know much about at the time. We didn't even know he had 15 plus years already of experience in game development. He came to us and said, hey, do you want to take this game that you're working on to the next level? And obviously we said, yeah, sure. And that was it, because Ricardo seemed much more experienced than us at the time because we were absolutely no idea what to do from there on out. We could only do game development and not a very good job at it back then. And we knew we could read blog posts about how to do marketing and approach game publishers, but we didn't have the experience that someone like Ricardo had. So Ricardo said, look, there's this Prémios PlayStation happening. It might be a good idea to join that contest. And we said, what's in it? And he said, well, there's 10K prize money, 50K marketing campaign, an office space in Lisbon, which is pretty handy. And back then it was already quite expensive to get space in Lisbon. A PS4 dev kit, which is always an open door to PS4, obviously. And we also won that. And suddenly there was this moment there. In the morning I went to this event, we won that, and then things kind of synced in. And after that I went back to work and kind of, I don't know, things got sinking in. It was kind of this poisoned present almost. I won, but now I gotta make this really. So yeah, and Prémios PlayStation itself isn't guaranteed to make you succeed because 10K really isn't a lot when it comes to the full budget of the game. When you account every single thing that you have to pay for, and but it was a tool for us to break this, what is called the game dev Ouroboros. I figured that Ouroboros sounds much cooler than pescadinha de rabo na boca. So yeah, which consists of having no experience, means no financing because you have no experience, and that means continuing having no experience. When we needed to break that cycle, and PlayStation Awards was kind of this tool to break that cycle and get into a publishing deal, because in the eyes of a publisher, having like this seal of approval from Prémios PlayStation is like an extra point on your CV as a developer. So we went with that award to Casual Connect 2016, a few months after, or a few weeks actually, after we won that award, and kind of signed a deal with Playdius, which is a French publisher. They are now called Dear Villagers, I think. They changed names recently. So yeah, in March 2016, we went full steam ahead. I quit my daily job as a web designer and front-end developer and made Fun Punch games legit and jumped full force into the studio, which is kind of cool studio with a fully branded PlayStation studio. Yeah, so we expanded the team, kind of brought 3 more artists to help me out with pixel art, backgrounds, and character concepts, audio, an extra programmer, on top of what was already a 3-man team with me, Felipe, and Ricardo. And we started designing the game based on what we experienced until then with events, by bringing the game to events, which was, we wanted to design this game around a feeling of excitement, of intensity. And one of the things, you can Google Evo Moment 37, that was kind of the spark that ignited us to, we want to make people jump from their chairs and kind of scream, and people there are watching the game in the background to put their hands on their head when something crazy happens. We want to explore that excitement feeling. So we went for mechanics like mind games and risk and reward and emergent gameplay elements, always making it easy to play, but really hard to master. Like anyone can play Tetris, but only the ones that play it for huge amounts of time can master certain techniques, even though even your grandma can figure the game out in a few seconds. So yeah, we started to not only focus more our design of the game, but also our vision for the game with concept art, and that's a really important part. So we went We already knew we wanted to have this medieval setting with where the ranged weapons would make sense. So we started exploring different warriors. This is the Spartan back there. We already had about 3 characters when we started working more seriously on concept art, but we started like fleshing them out a bit more, working with Francisco Matos back then to establish the abilities. We already have a few abilities, and the concept art really helps to focus those ideas and make them more fleshed out. I mean, it's kind of a mist at first, but with concept art it kind of becomes more concrete. So I figured that because it's Pixels Camp, maybe you guys like pixel art, I don't know. Maybe that's far-fetched, but yeah, this is the process that we ended up doing for the characters. This is following our approach to the visuals of the game. We figured this is kind of mechanically, this is a game that you could maybe even see in some kind of arcade back in the 90s or 80s. So we wanted to keep that mood and that vision for the art style as well. So we went to pixel art. We figured it would really convey the mechanics a lot more as something kind of retro but modern at the same time. And then we had to animate everything. This is the Archer running cycle. I kind of go through parts and make things as a huge blob, focusing on movement, then add details, and so on. And then do the rest for all the other 8 characters as well, and all their animations for walking back and forth, and throwing spears or whatever they use as a weapon, and all the hit animations, death, there's all that stuff that needs to be done. And all the visual effects as well. Some of these weren't even used in the game, which is shame really. But this always happens in game development. So arenas took the same treatment. We kind of explored places where the action could happen, where some kind of story could be told just by watching the background. These weird questions could appear in your mind, like what kind of hammer is that against that gate? What kind of feature is that? So we wanted to explore the design of the arenas and make storytelling kind of a big part of it, as much as we could back then. Yeah. So those took the pixel art treatment as well, and also the animation. To cut costs in audio, we used ourselves as the audio talent, so to speak, talent with a pinch of salt. It's a great way to make the team laugh at themselves, because there's always this in the voice booth, in the recording booth, and if you wonder why the Spartan has that sexy voice, that's me back there. We used events as milestones. They are great because events don't ever change dates, right? And you can always, if you put dates on yourself to make the next weekend as the day you'll have the next character, you will end up postponing that until eternity. And events really kind of are set in stone, and you'll never miss those. So those serve as events, and they are great opportunities. Got it. To test new features and characters and mechanics. It's always great to get a breath of fresh air in those events as well. And we started to get our feet wet with the online multiplayer. This was kind of a point of discussion every time we picked it, but with events, again, these were the places where we figured, well, people really assume that it's going to be online, because they don't ask if it's going to get online. They ask, is this going to have ranked ladder? And we said, well, he's assuming already it's going to be online, because it's a no-brainer as a player for him to have a multiplayer game without online. It doesn't make sense in the player's head. So it was kind of a rabbit hole, hence the background there. But it was kind of this limbo between crazy and stupid to make such a a big decision into with such a small team. Again, it's just 2 programmers, and only one of them has multiplayer experience. And but yeah, we still dove into it. We kind of made it across to the other side. Yeah, supporting multiple languages is also a big step. But then, as it happens with most games, we got delayed because of our inexperience, because of having such a small team with such huge tasks. But this also was the opportunity for us to add a Twitch mode and a single player campaign. The Twitch mode is kind of important because you want, nowadays even more than back then, you want streamers and YouTubers to play your game. And if you see Fortnite as an example, and Ninja like asking for $1 million to promote Apex Legends, it does make sense now. So as much as we might not like them, they are here to stay, and they are a huge source of marketing your game in a totally organic way, almost. So yeah. With this chapter 2, what went good with the game? And yeah, first is the team. We didn't expect to click so as well as it did, but the team kind of clicked with its disagreements along the way. But it's only fair because we're all weird humans back there, and in every part of the team, every element knew how to do something other than their main job. So programmers knew how to design, artists knew how to do social media to an extent. Ricardo, our business developer, does production as well. So that really clicked, and really was like pushed this to the next step. And yeah, Prémios PlayStation was also a big point there when it happened. Kind of took the game to the next step. And PlayStation Iberia really was the really pushed us into getting to places like E3 in LA, to Game Lab Barcelona the year next to the one we went by ourselves, to Fun and Series in Bilbao. So events all across Iberia and others, and the TV channels like This Is Us in RTP Arena, and CC All Stars, all kinds of TV shows and press. That's Ricardo on TV. Yeah, so with this, in what PlayStation couldn't help us with marketing, our publisher Playdius really helped us out, because PlayStation was only responsible for marketing in Iberia, but Playdius was international. So that was a really big push that it did, including finding distribution in Asia, which is great, and kind of got the game selling even before it was finished, which is kind of cool. And yeah, and those events also brought a lot of visibility and kind of street cred among other publishers and developers as well. And that presence in international events was also really refreshing for the team to get out of the office and experience the game in the players' hands and gather feedback. And we both Playdius and ourselves got ourselves to places like Gamescom, which is the biggest event in the world for gaming in Germany. This is as in EGX in the UK, in Portugal, all kinds of gaming events. This is PAX South in Texas. This is one of our partners that took the game to Tokyo in Japan, which is kind of cool. And one of those distributors in Asia took it to events in China, again in China. We went 2 times actually to Gamescom, which is kind of cool. This guy is pleading for mercy on his knees, I think. Yeah, so one other thing that also went really cool, which went really smoothly, well, maybe not as smoothly, but it did brought a lot of attention, was the open beta. Because being online, we needed testing, and an open beta is kind of a great way to gather a lot of people. We kind of spread codes around for until they were valid until the beta was off, and then it would expire of your Steam account, and that brought a lot of attention from the media, and some of them really had nice things to say about us and the game, or the game rather, and these things kind of pushed the morale of the team up to complete the game. Ricardo, with those 15 years of experience, kind of brought all these contacts with partners to the next level. So every one of these kind of pushed the game onward. And there's this funny story about Discord that Ricardo was watching these two guys playing on Gamescom, and he said they were clearly having fun and like poking at each other and laughing and jumping around. And Ricardo said, "Yeah, you guys having fun? Yeah, this is really a fun guy. Here's my card." And he looked at the card, and it was the CFO of Discord. And all kinds of crazy things happen at events internationally, so that's cool. Yeah, one of those partnerships actually ended up with this, making this happen, which is kind of weird when you're a game developer and see this. But there's also this sense of, this really happened, and there's something physical to show, which is crazy still, to go to a store and see this on the shelves. So yeah, and coming back to Twitch mode, that also really helped the game be pushed over to people that were interested in that. So really helped with the marketing. This was one of the first guys that tried the game. He was stoned, by the way, as he was playing this. Medicinal purposes, mind you. So, and then at one point, Flip called me like 2 in the morning, and I was already just about to fall asleep, and I woke up, and he said, "You gotta check Twitch." And I went there, and we were like top 10 on the front page of Twitch, ahead of Hearthstone, Dota 2, Rocket League, WoW, and Dragon Ball, you name it. It was kind of a weird moment, but this was all fueled by one single guy that has 2 million followers on Twitch, more than that even. And he's kind of a trendsetter. It's much like Lyric or Summit2G, if you're aware of the Twitch ecosystem. So yes, this was a huge breakthrough as well, but also kind of disappointing because Twitch mode was never meant to be played by how many spectators? About 32. It reached 40,000 spectators. So the game wasn't designed to support that many people interacting with it, so it kind of broke completely. It was kind of a shit fest, to be honest, but still we made it to the front page of Twitch. That's amazing. Yeah, thanks, Soda Poppin. Yeah, and to this day it kind of has this cool score on when you search it on Google. Steam has a kind of a great score. Metacritic not as much, but we're still happy about it. And before I jump into the bad, I want to go into the good, bad, kind of. So yeah, a few months ago this happened, which is like this, how do you call it? Like this, what's the term for this? This bootleg mobile game based on Striker's Edge that's clearly the Sacred Tree Arena. Kind of these weird filters to make the pixel art not pixel art. And this doesn't make me mad as much as it amused me. So it's kind of weird that this happened, but I guess imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and this is not in the public Google Play Store, so it's fine. So yeah, going into the bad, this is what went bad. So if you notice the scope, what's wrong with the scope, by the way? It's too darn big. Doesn't fit the slide even. So yeah, the scope was too big, and the team was too small for the scope. Not that the scope was too big in itself, but the team was small for such a big scope. Yeah, we lacked resources, not only in team size but also in budget, and this led to all the problems you're gonna see next. Which is shortage on content. So the game has no unlockable content, and this really hits negatively when it comes to player retention, keeping players coming back to the game. And based on our inexperience with PS4 as a platform, the TRC approval, which is like this approval process to make it into the PS4 network, PlayStation network, kind of took extra time because it was our first time doing this, and with the game being online, it adds extra checkboxes that you need to tick, and that makes it extra difficult. Yeah, community building, we also did that a bit, and there's a small little community for Striker's Edge, which is cool, but turns out that having the technical side of the multiplayer running is only half the work, and you kind of need someone dedicated nowadays to making the community grow and making it work and keeping them interested. But this seems obvious now, but it's part of the learning process for us as well. Yeah, lack of tools kind of made us required us to have sometimes two programmers, not even one, but two, to add content to the game, and it really took a toll. And tools are also kind of a breaking point when it comes to UI, because it turns out having a UI that works across multiple platforms, no matter what your input device, either it's controller, mouse, keyboard, it's also quite challenging. It also took a toll in the schedule. Yeah, about that scope and lack of resources, this also led to the having no ranked ladder. This would be a nice thing to make player retention work. But yeah, lack of resources. Yeah, all these ended up forcing us to make delays on the game, and it also takes a huge toll on the team morale. But either way, we kept pushing, no surrender. Yeah, chapter 4, lessons. So yeah, there's a lot of lessons, and we discussed this internally with the team at lunch or whenever this comes up. We always discuss what went right and what went wrong. So there's this daily post-mortem that we do, and one of the lessons is, if your game doesn't add anything really new, your audience won't care, because good isn't good enough. You got to make something great nowadays, especially with 40 to 50 games coming out on Steam, even more nowadays, since Valve took made those changes about a year ago or more. There's like a cascade of games coming into Steam every day. So you either make your game really new, or if it's not that new, make it really solid, really good. Might not be like something completely fresh, but make it solid. Maybe like Hollow Knight did. Hollow Knight doesn't innovate particularly, but it's really, really solid, and it found its audience anyway. Yeah, that part about scope, reduce it. Yeah, it's and mostly because every task always in game dev, it always takes much more than you expect. Yeah, and especially with us, small, fresh indie team, that was also very, very, very true. Yeah, prioritize your tasks and plan your milestones. This is nothing new, but I really want to reinforce this. Always have a roadmap, and either with having those events as milestones or whatever you do, make sure you're focused. And yeah, make your marketing work as well, because if you don't even have a marketing plan or budget, don't even expect to sell much, if at all, really. Because remember that story about the 40, 50 games a day on Steam, even more on mobile. I'm not even touching on mobile. Yeah, that really requires a lot of marketing investment. And nowadays, for example, in mobile, the marketing investment takes 5 to 6 more times than the development of the game itself. So it's crazy nowadays. Yeah. So have a clear vision for your game. That part about prototyping that we did and all the concept art, it really helps establish the vision for the game and keep everybody on the same page and having the same goal. And on the long run, people stay true to that vision if it's well put together. Yeah, and about that journey into game development as a career, be willing to take certain sacrifices. Maybe sacrifices is a bit dramatic, but expect to take a few things off your lifestyle even at times. I know I did, at least. Yeah, it's a tough industry, and it really takes a toll on you if you're not careful or if you don't expect them or prevent them. So yeah, always keep in mind that finished is better than perfect. At some point, we wanted to have everything in Striker's Edge at first. We wanted ranked ladder, yeah, sure, let's do it. And then you kind of have to realize that you need to actually finish that damn game, and stop hearing that this is changing every now and then. Okay, let's go. Yeah, you kind of get tired of hearing, so how's that game going? And after 2-3 years of hearing this, you kind of want to finish it anyway. So a finished game is something that you can throw behind your back, so to say, and get on with the next lesson. And yeah, and last one is enjoy the ride, because game dev is great and the community is great and really makes a difference when it comes to making those stressful times a bit more digestible, so to say. And yeah, the community is great. Either here in Portugal or internationally, there's GDC happening here. It's one of the craziest, most enjoyable times of the year to experience game development and the community. So yeah, it's great fun to be in this field, because thanks to the community. So yeah, wrapping it all up, because I don't want to bother you guys too much with this. But yeah, as it happens with every first game that everybody does, Striker's Edge has a lot of problems and failed on multiple levels, and no one is more harsh on ourselves than us. But sometimes, as hard as we gotta go back to this slide and remember that we didn't start out by wanting to make a PS4 title or something with online. We just wanted to make something. So this is kind of acting up. I guess I'll resort to the good old arrow keys. Yeah, so we set out to make this experiment with game development. We just really wanted to try and make something out of Unity or Game Maker, whatever. We wanted to explore the spirit of a game jam out of a game jam. And we ended up snowballing that project into a PS4 and PC game with online multiplayer that got financed and published by Playdius. It got us to E3 and Gamescom, two of the biggest events in gaming in the world. It won multiple awards and created Fun Punch, a company. So for a debut game, for a first game, I'll take that proudly. And finally, if I have to finish with the phrase, is that if this teaches you anything, is that the value of curiosity and that experimentation, that raw curiosity to make something happen really can take you really, really far if you push a bit through. That's all. Thank you. Thanks. If you guys want to follow me, that's my Twitter handle. It's kind of weird, I know. Those are my contacts. If you want to follow Fun Punch as well, to get to know our next projects, which we are really keen on getting you guys to know it already. Yeah. So questions, if anyone, sure. I knew that was gonna come up. It's kind of, it has a lot of potential. First, if they kind of, if they solve all those physical problems of servers being remote and all that input lag stuff, if they get over it, it's really interesting. On the other side, I'm really worried about the business model, because that's the most important part of the thing, almost. That wasn't disclosed yet. And I'm kind of fearful because it's Google, and we know their path so far with YouTube and its content creators. It's kind of, they are kind of opaque when it comes to policies and how they handle their own platform. It's kind of a mystery and kind of, let's call it frustrating at times. Yeah, I'm kind of fearful on that part, and also the business model about how are they going to account, if it's something like Netflix for games, how are they going to calculate your revenue monthly? Is it by hours played of your game? Because if that's so, like 2 or 3 hour games are gonna go, they're not gonna happen. There's gonna be these games that are run on the long time, like Fortnite, or all these long-term games like Destiny. They are the ones getting the biggest slice. So I'm kind of fearful that games that I enjoy might disappear under that business models. But it's really early to say something. But yeah, I like some of the ideas, but I got a step. I got a feet in the back, just so just to prevent any major drawbacks. Yeah. Sure, go ahead. With that's one of the things with using Unity, which was our development tool, is that it's really easy to port anything. So we were kind of having PlayStation as our MVP, because it's easy to scale up on PC. So PS4 was kind of the target most of the time. It was not because of the platform itself, but because of that TRC approval that I mentioned. It's kind of hard to get past that approval, because it's really, they are kind of picky. Yeah, more of a bureaucracy challenge. Yeah, I would say so, because especially for the technical side of Striker's Edge, I mean, it's not a 3D game. It is in the back end, but it doesn't push the hardware that much, so it's not that easy to make PlayStation run your game or our game in there. So, not much of a problem. Any other questions? Sure. We do have a lot of content planned for the game. It's just a matter of having the time and the resources to do it, really, because we're such a small team. We're just 5 of us at a time, and it's really hard to jump into new projects to keep the company running, and also updating the game. We do actually always keep the servers on track and make sure the players are listened on Discord and all the social media. But we're not. We wanted to make a Twitch version of the game, for the record. But yeah, it's not easy with such a small team. That's one of the that part about resources. It creeps out into post-launch as well. So yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the question is about scope and how people perceive your game. Is if they assume it's got to be big with standards like again Fortnite. I hate to mention it, but it's kind of sets a trend. But yeah, that really comes down to market, because there's a lot of people that don't like bigger games, that don't want to play the bigger games or games as a service because they don't find them appealing to them. There's lots of people that want point-and-click games. So you really need to find your audience, because there's people that always want these short burst experiences. Like I'm always trying to find the next 2 to 3 hour game for me to play that is enjoyable. It has a start and a finish, and that's it. You wrap it up much like a movie. So there's a market for that, and it's up to you to find that market and make sure that the game appeals to it. Not everyone likes games as a service, and you don't have to do it necessarily, because if you're gonna jump into that market, you got stuff like Epic and Valve and Bungie doing that stuff way better than you do. So even if you do that, make sure it's something different. Like, make sure the community is well. You really listen to the community, or do something really different than the others. That's one of the cool things about being an indie developer, is that you are much more reachable as a person than bigger companies. Like, you try to speak to Epic or Bungie, and they're like this megalodon up in the distance, and you're like this Shadow of the Colossus guy trying to speak to it, and you won't listen. So yeah, indie developers are kind of more on the level of players, and that's a big selling point. Any more questions? Yeah, so if you guys wanna any questions after this, you can always. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah. Do you mean that on our side picking playlists, or the publishers picking us? Oh, okay. Yeah. They always they want to know track record, because that's the biggest, proof that you can make the stuff that you're saying you're gonna do, and they really want a solid prototype. If you say something like, "Oh, it's gonna be this way, we were gonna have this and this," anybody can say that. So they really want proof. Even if you don't have track record, have like a vertical slice, a demo that really embodies what you're saying, or at least they can extrapolate what you've done into what you say it's going to be. Having a prototype is really a deal breaker, and if you don't have one, and having a business plan is also kind of required, especially nowadays. And they were really you gotta prove yourself as much as possible. So with those awards, there was also one of our cards to play at the moment of pitching the game, and that's So nowadays it's even harder, because there's so many games, and companies that were before were just developers now are publishers themselves, and seems that there's more publishers nowadays, but their work is harder, it seems. And it wasn't that long ago that things kind of changed, because Steam is changing all the time, and yeah, and people are kind of moving to Switch because it feels like a safer platform, and having your game run on Switch is also a big card in the deck again. And yeah, as much it feels kind of vague, but as you really got to prove yourself and make sure your game is bulletproof by pulling as many cards as you can. You remember that Uroboters thing? We needed to break that, and we didn't have much of a choice, to be honest, because there's a few interested people. We were approached quite a few of them. That's why we went to Casual Connect in Amsterdam and other events, and we tried to reach out to multiple publishers. But Playdius Playdius isn't the Devolver Digital or like a Raw Fury or Team 17, but they are kind of this mid-level publisher, which we were more than happy with signing with, because it's our first game. We can't go straight into the first game with, Devolver straight ahead, There's people that can do that, but they also have a lot of experience prior to that. And we didn't have that much of an experience, so I'm happy we signed up with them, and yeah, it really make the game what it is. Thanks. Sure. We did sell more on PC slightly, but not as much as we thought. We actually thought PS4 would sell more, but yeah, it was the other way around. I'm sure launching it on Switch would sell even more, but yeah, that's another story. You mean in marketing? We can't exactly say, we didn't track that exactly, which is a shame really. But yeah, there's a lot of people coming from Twitch and from events, and yeah, there's a lot of that, and a lot of people that come organically, like hearing about it on a podcast, but most of it, I think, it's from Steam wish lists. They kind of see their list of games to check out on Steam, and it appears there's people that play usually Towerfall or stuff like that, or Windjammers, and they come from those kinds of games, and they are recommended Striker's Edge because it's similar. So there's a lot of that as well. I think that's it. If there's no more questions. Yeah, if you guys want to ask questions after the talk, I'll be happy to answer. I'll be around if you guys want to talk. And thanks again. Thanks.